Hey everybody, I'm Carl Lanning, Brazos River Charter School with This Week in History, specifically the week of April the 12th through the 18th. Well, let's see here. On April the 13th of 1860, the first Pony Express run reached California from St. Joseph, Missouri. It was a 10-day crossing of half the continent, which is truly pretty amazing when you consider, I believe, the record for a stagecoach was 25 days. Now, there aren't really a lot of sources, good sources on the Pony Express. Honestly, one of the best ones is William F. Buffalo Bill Cody, and he's not exactly one of the best sources. He incorporated a Pony Express ride into his Wild West show with him being chased by Indians and the entire 9 yards, although there's no evidence that he ever actually worked for the Pony Express. Now, he did work for the company that owned the Pony Express, but it doesn't appear that he actually rode for them. So we're a little bit thin as far as information goes. What we do know is this, that along the 2,000-mile route from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California, there were a total of 190 stations, averaging about 12 to 15 miles apart. A rider was expected to cover 80 to 120 miles, stopping no more than 2 minutes at each station for a drink of water, a bite to eat, to relieve themselves, while someone took a very specially designed saddle and put it onto a fresh horse. Now, the horses were limited to carrying 165 pounds, which meant that the rider could not weigh any more than 125 pounds. The rest was accounted for by the saddle, mail, water, and a mandatory Bible. The specially designed saddle had 4 pockets built into it, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but 3 of them were kept locked. The only keys were located at the departure point in St. Joseph, Missouri, and the end of the route in California. Now, one pocket was kept unlocked to carry military dispatches that might be picked up along the way. The cost to mail 1 page on very, very thin, lightweight onion skin paper was $5. So this was a rather expensive way to mail things. Now, the Pony Express only lasted for 19 months, and it must have been very disheartening to the riders to see their replacement being built literally right along the route that they themselves were taking. That was the transcontinental telegraph. The riders, as a matter of fact, they had to sign an oath saying that they wouldn't drink, smoke, cuss, or gamble, and an advertisement that appeared in newspapers, this is what it said, wanted young, skinny, wiry fellows not over 18 must be expert riders willing to risk death daily. Orphans preferred, $25 per week. This would have been hard work. So anyway, the first successful Pony Express run. Well, now if you remember last week, I mentioned this particular coffin. This coffin belonged, well, this is a replica of the coffin that President Abraham Lincoln was placed in. Abraham Lincoln was murdered on April the 14th of 1865, dying early the next day. Now, 11 years after his death and burial at the Oak Ridge Cemetery in Springfield, Illinois, a very strange series of events was initiated. The instigator was a small-time Irish crime boss by the name of Big Jim Kennelly. Now, Kennelly was mostly involved in counterfeiting. Turned out that his best engraver of $50 bills was in prison. So he hatched a scheme to steal President Lincoln's body, to ransom it for $200,000, as well as a full pardon for his engraver. In the early summer of 1876, 2 of the gang members and a third man that they invited, because they believed he was an actual grave robber, showed up at the unguarded cemetery. The invited alleged grave robber turned out to be a very, very poor choice. He was actually an undercover Secret Service agent who had planted himself inside the Kennelly gang, and he had alerted local authorities as to what was about to happen. The 3 men broke into the monument and located Lincoln's tomb. The top of it was covered with a piece of marble and plaster, and that was very easily dealt with. However, that coffin that I showed you earlier weighed 500 pounds. It was made out of cedar and it was lead lined. When one of the men went to go find something to help them move the coffin, they were alerted by an accidental gunshot by the approaching authorities. There was a short gunfight. The robbers did escape, but they were captured 10 days later. Now, in order to protect the late president's coffin, it was buried by 5 men in a shallow grave in the basement of the tomb. There it remained until 1901. That year, Robert Lincoln, President Lincoln's only surviving son, instructed that the body be placed inside a steel cage lowered into a 10-foot deep vault and buried under tons of concrete, which is exactly what they did, and that is Lincoln's tomb if you go there today. Now, this was done, but not before several of the 23 men that were there suggested to Robert that they might want to open the president's casket just to make sure that his body was actually still there. Robert agreed. What they saw when they opened the coffin was that the president's facial features were perfectly recognizable, with the exception that he was missing his eyebrows. His suit was covered with a sort of a yellowish mold, and that there were little flecks of red and blue on his suit, and they assumed that that was the American flag that had been placed on his chest, that it had deteriorated. Other than that, his remains were in perfect shape. Well, that's it for this week in history. Just to let you know what's coming up. Next week, we will deal with the death of this very, very famous and very, very feared man. I'm Carl Lanning. This is Brazos River Charter School, and we look forward to seeing you right here next week.